Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Hi Kim.
How are you?
Good. Oh, looks like we got Lynn on her phone. Andrea says hi from her iPad to everyone.
How you guys doing?
Hey Eric, good.
Good.
Although I've been in this chair most of the day and I think I've lost circulation to my legs.
I hear that.
Oh, too much today.
The only time I wasn't in this chair was when I was going in another chair driving to go show houses. So I hear you.
Yeah. Well, at least you got out and got a little walking. Hey Brenton, how's it going?
Brandon,
Hey, how's it
hey,
going, guys?
how you doing, buddy?
Awesome. You
Nice.
guys grinding.
So Jessie says that her Wi-Fi is spotty. She's here, but she'll probably be in and out. So hey, Jessie. There's Virginia. Lynn's on her phone, must be driving. Are you?
Sydney and I are both here.
Hi, Sydney and I.
Hello.
Out doing property previews.
Yep, we just did another check.
Another checkout.
Yep, for one of the rentals.
Gotcha. We'll drive careful.
So quite a day today, huh? We had a good training noon this morning. Feels like this morning.
Right, it does.
Yeah, a long time ago. Really good. Good prospect funnels, learning about some different ways to generate leads. I really enjoyed it. A lot of fun. Sounds like you had a lot of good energy in the office today too.
Yeah, well, Maylee had some people that were really wanting to come in and meet us that were joining. Like Jordan just joined a little bit ago, less than a week ago. And we've talked to him, but we hadn't met. And then he has somebody that he was bringing on. And then they had like 4 or 5 prospects. So we kind of let them invite them in here. And when you say energy in the office, they kind of go hand in hand. It's a little easier to have energy in person and you can kind of feel everybody. So hopefully we're going to open that back up and be back soon to where we can all come to the office because I sure do love it better.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll tell you what, guys, when we're doing like the training, which is awesome, Zoom or in person, I like the in person, but even on Zoom, we can still learn stuff, right? But when we do the overview and we've got that many new people in here, I had to say goodbye to you guys that were on Zoom, but obviously we were all still here. And that's kind of when the real Q&A happens. People stand up and they stretch, they relax, a little bit more networking and background and being able to kind of find out a little bit more about each person. So I love doing that in person. And yeah, got to get rid of those masks. the whole thing is crazy.
It'll be over in a few months.
God, I hope sooner than that.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. So, Jeff, is there anything that you wanted to cover tonight or nothing on the agenda?
Not really. I'm just checking the chat again. Jesse's
Okay.
out, and so I don't forget to pass on her comment. She's talking to Sydney and Lynn. She said she loved their video post. They did a video post on Instagram. Them coming, it was fun and fun getting your walkthrough. So thanks for that, Jesse. No, I've been trying to put together. I've been trying to think, okay, well, what kind of training can I do for a lunch and learn, right? Because you guys know I'm not really doing some of the lead generation activities that you guys are learning and doing and should be doing. You all should be doing. Lynn and I are at a different spot where we're trying to do less real estate, hopefully. And you all kind of know our background, our story there. So it's really interesting because I've been swiping some before and after pictures of some of my listings, like what it looked like, how we prepped it, and what we presented versus what it was. And it's very time consuming because I'm trying to match up angles of the room Like this is here's the before picture, and then the same angle, here's my after picture. And it's kind of fun, but it's part of the reason it's kept me in this chair. So I thought, Eric, we've talked about our listing presentation style, a little bit different than the broker taught, brokerage listing presentation. So I'm trying to put something together like that for a lunch and learn. I think might be kind of helpful. At least get people thinking creatively that haven't seen that before, and putting together like a PowerPoint, some organization to it. But the pictures are kind of fun. Sydney walked in while I was going through some of them, and I had it up on the monitor up here, and she was just like, "Wow, wow!" Every time, because I got the before, the after, the before, the after. So that's kind of fun.
And you don't usually see. Oh, go ahead, Lynn.
Oh, it's that I was saying it was so satisfying. It's like the best thing ever to see all your hard work come together.
Yeah,
That's really cool. You don't usually see before and after pictures of a staging necessarily. It's usually remodels, right? So kind of really a good idea to put that in there so you can see what's an inexpensive major change to create a lot of value. That's pretty cool.
Well, it's really like we talk about, it's more of an emotional presentation. We're merchandising the home, right? We want to elicit that, wow, that's a nice house. Not like there's a bedroom, there's a bathroom. Ooh, it needs a lot of updating, right? It's amazing what paint and carpet will do. And for me, countertops. If you've got Formica countertops, they gotta go. Go with a granite or a quartz, and the mileage you get out of that after the presentation of making it look like a newer home versus an older home. And it also depends on the price range, but buyers are looking at it and they're going, man, I like it. Or they're like not even really that emotionally tugged by it. They're like, they keep scrolling, you want to make them stop, but you want to make them not think that they have to do all that work if it's done for them, right? So it's really, if your clients listen to you, the painting and carpet and floorings and countertops. It's not really a flip, right? But it kind of, because there's some flippers, that's all they do is they just doll it up and make it look pretty and newer and update the colors and the scheme. And some of the ones I'm looking at as I'm clicking through the pictures, we didn't even do light fixtures and stuff like that. It was just the color scheme and the cleanliness and the declutter. Just amazing.
That's cool. I can't wait to see that.
Did you have something you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I sure did. I just wanted to see if there was anything that, pressing that we needed to chat about. But
no, yeah. I apologize. I hadn't really even had time to really brainstorm and think, what could I share? So I'm pretty good at leaving that up to you, and I apologize.
No, that's good. All good.
Yeah, I love you guys' energy.
I can give you a sneak peek of the pictures I'm going through if you want.
Sure.
What was that, Eric?
Yeah, if you like, that'd be kind of fun. I do have something to discuss, but I'd love to see it.
Okay, yeah, it won't take very long. I'll just give you a teaser. Let me see if I got that folder up. So I'm probably gonna have to open it first and then share it. Give me one sec. Let me open one of the properties. I just want to put together some examples. Visuals are good, and we talk a lot on here about how to do things, and you can picture it in your mind, but sometimes the visuals are really helpful. So, I was already sharing. Let me stop that and pick the right one. Okay, I think this is it. Okay, can you see that living room?
Yep.
Okay, so this house I just sold, it was listed a couple of years ago and it didn't sell. These are actually somebody else's listing photos. And this isn't bad, right? But these are the listing photos I pulled off of the previous listing a couple of years ago. They had it listed for $535 and it didn't sell. We just sold it for $675.
Nice.
So, the market's doing well, right? So I got some credit for that, but I also got some credit for, I hope that's not just, there it is. So that's my living room.
Wow,
This was their living room before.
that's incredible.
And this is what we listed. Here's their kitchen. Now, I told you I like countertops and paint. We didn't change the cabinetry. These are nice solid wood cabinets. They're just dated, right? So somebody can look at that and say that's an older kitchen, and it had the Formica on here. So we put on quartz and we painted. That's all we did. And
Even left the tile, huh?
they even left the tile, same appliances too. But doesn't that look like a newer house?
It's amazing.
This is another view of the kitchen, and obviously the first thing your eye goes to is that friggin' plant. And this is our view of that same view. This is another view of that living room back towards the entryway. And this was our listing. This is the previous listing. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's even the same carpet. We painted though. This was their master bedroom. Got the exercise bike front and center. And this is what we listed. And then
Jeff, is that through the staging company that you use?
this particular one, the wife had a friend that was a stager, so we worked with her. So it wasn't my person, but it was a combination of their efforts. They did all the painting except for the cabinets, because that's really hard to get cabinetry to look good, and you got to spray them. You can't roll them and brush them and stuff. So they hired out the countertops and the painting of the cabinets. So this kitchen, or I mean, this bathroom, we didn't do much to it, but we changed the light fixtures and the countertops, and we painted this, and look how different it looks. And the photography's a little better too, right? And then this one, we didn't, this is in the basement. We didn't paint the whole basement. I just wanted to show this picture because all we did is move some of the stuff out of the way, make it look more open. Just kind of decluttered. So it's kind of fun to, when you look at before and after, it's like, that's the same bathroom. But hopefully you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. When you look at this one versus this one, you kind of like, oh, nice, nice. This is like, it's all right. You know, double vanities, that's all cool. This bedroom doesn't make you feel anything, but this does. Right?
That's incredible.
So previous listing, new listing. One of them didn't sell. Didn't even sell. It was on the market. They pulled it off and decided to stay. Anyway, that's my teaser.
I know which house I want to live in.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
when our clients are scrolling through, you got to put yourself in the position of the buyer. They're scrolling through and they're sorting. This one's nicer than that one. This one's nicer than that one. And so you got to be at the top. You got to make that list to go out and even see the properties.
So was that the same seller all the way through?
Same owner. Yeah, same owner. They listed it with another agent before, and then I listed it this year.
Did you help them through the process of making those changes and updates?
Yep, we did the whole thing. We always talk about the whole walkthrough, room by room, all the suggestions, punch list, inside, outside, you know, bark in the flower beds. I didn't show the whole house, you know, just showing the interior, but we did some stuff on the outside too, give it some more curb appeal. But they put in some sweat equity, and they, like I said, they did the painting themselves, and it took some time, but they had a lot of stuff too. And so when they just got rid of things that they were planning on getting rid of anyway, like that bedroom set I showed you, they had the log cabin bedroom set in there. That was their bedroom set, even when I saw it. But they were planning on buying one for the new house. So I talked them into buying it now. So that wasn't staged, that was their new bedroom set. And they sold the old one because they were going to get rid of it anyway. So you kind of find out what their plans are. And if it incorporates updating some of that stuff, then you don't even need a stager for anything. Basically, the stager came in for the living room features. And there were some rooms I didn't show you, but some accents, some wall art and some shelf, you know, counter space type accents, and a little bit of furniture, but most of it was theirs. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, that's way fun. How long did it take from when you showed up the first time to when you actually listed it?
Can't remember on that one. They weren't in a big hurry to list. And so it was kind of like doing it nights and weekends. And plus they filled a couple storage chutes. So it was kind of like packing and painting and doing it along the side. So we weren't on a tight calendar, but it still only took them about 3 weeks.
What? Oh, wow.
Not too bad, huh?
No.
I think it was about 3 weekends. Hey, Rachel.
Wow. That's amazing. Hi, Rachel.
I mean, 3 weeks seems like a long period of time when somebody's calling you and they want to list their home. They're like, ready to list. And then you go in there and say, okay, I'm going to make some suggestions. This is what I think you ought to do. And now it's just like, I didn't want to work first. I just want to sell my house. It's like, well, do you want to get top dollar or do you just want to sell your house? And it's not like I had to beat up on the previous listing photos. It was their house. That was their furniture. That was the color scheme and stuff. So just talking about our approach and how we want to create that emotional feeling from a buyer, and it's a perceived value, right? The square footage is the same. You know, most of the carpet was the same. It's paint and some countertops in the bathroom and the kitchen. They didn't even do the other bathrooms, just the master and the kitchen. They left the other countertops in the other bathrooms. But it just goes a long ways to making the buyer love the house and want to live there. Like you said, I know which one I can see myself living in, right? So.
Good deal.
Hey, Jay.
Always stage, Jeff?
Yeah.
Like, or you do? Okay.
Well, what was the question? I just heard Jeff.
Oh, sorry. Do you always stage your listings?
Well, I don't know if you were on when I was just showing those pictures, but when they live there, I call it merchandising because we're kind of staging with their stuff. And sometimes it's a combination of the two, like the ones we were just looking at. A lot of it was their own stuff. And part of staging is getting rid of stuff. Elimination is a big part of staging. So when you've got an empty house, you're only bringing in what's necessary. The minimum, just what's necessary to accent the use of that room, right? So when you live there though, you got just a lot of other stuff that you use in your daily life, or you just like, you know, shelves are more full than they need to be. They're not placed like with little pots in the book and you know, presented that way because you live there. It's your stuff. So it's decluttering and staging. If I can get them to do it with just what they have, that's great. When I get a client like this that they actually had a friend that was a stager, but I and Eric does the same. We bring in our stager to do a design consult. Sometimes I do the walkthrough. I've done enough of them that I can give them the advice and if I got the right relationship with them. But if I need that third party validation, I bring in one of the gals from the staging company and they walk room by room and they're telling them what the popular colors are now. This is how you have to present your clothing in your closet. I mean, little things like that matter. Remember Eric telling the story about somebody coming to the open house and says, wow, she's so organized. All her shoes are lined up, just perfect rows and everything. And he's like, that's not by accident. Right, Eric? You remember that?
Yeah.
We did that on purpose. So yes, I try.
You're talking to your clients and trying to get them on board with you is basically your main question to them. I heard you ask it, do you want to sell your house or do you want to sell your house for top dollar? Is that kind of how you get them to be on board with that?
Yep, that's kind of asking them what their motivation is, right? Do you want to sell it quickly or do you want to get the most money? If they say the most money and I want to sell it quickly, now we got to talk about convenience or inconvenience. Like these people inconvenience themselves. They didn't want to paint the entire upstairs of their house. They didn't want to get bids for countertops and painting the cabinets, but they did it because they knew what product we were going to present when we listed it. And it's all on purpose, right? We want multiple offers the first weekend to get our top dollar. If we don't get multiple offers the first weekend, we're not going to get them as much money in the long run. And then part of my conversation, Rachel, with them is if, you know, we're going to list it, we're going to shoot for this weekend. If they're not doing everything that I want to get it, then they know it, right? So it's not like I have an excuse if it doesn't work right, but it's kind of like, okay, well, this is what we already talked about because I've set the expectations. If you're not going to do this, then here's the expectations, right? And one thing I highly, highly, highly encourage them to do is whatever we go out of the gate with, I don't want to drop the price, like ever. I don't want buyers looking at the history of my property, or they go see it, they like it, and the agent pulls up the history, says, oh my gosh, they've had 3 price drops in the last 6 weeks. I think we can get them down another 20. That's exactly the psychological process they go through when they're deciding, well, what do you think we should offer? You know, they're not going to offer most of the time full price if you've been sitting on the market for a few months. But they might be closer if they're like, wow, I guess they're serious about the price. They haven't dropped it even, you know, $500. And so that's another thing that I need for negotiating. When an agent calls me and says, do you think they have any wiggle room in that price? They've been on the market for a few months, and this hasn't happened for a while for me though. But when they do that, I say, obviously they haven't listed where they think they're going to sell it. That's why we're still at that price. It's an easy comeback. I don't have to give up anything. I don't have to say, well, they, you know, let's see what you can present. It's like, no, that's what they want. 100%. I know it's been on the market for 3 weeks, but I'm going to get that. That answer your question? Well, staging is important to me because it's a presentation. So that was your question. Do you stage every home? It depends on my client. Do I suggest it on every home? Yes. A vacant, cold, open, empty property just does not convey the same to a buyer as one that's staged. I mean, I take buyers in homes that are staged, and sometimes we sit there in the living room for half an hour and talk about the house and stuff instead of moving on, right? And so the house gets credit for that, and so does the value of the house.
So how do you approach the dollar amount with them? Because obviously it costs money to stage it.
Yeah, but if you're talking $1,000 or $2,000, then I can also compare that to price drops. If they're saying, well, let's start here. It depends on the conversation. If they're saying, well, the market's so good, let's start here. So it's just kind of like realistically, you're gonna have that conversation with them. Well, what's gonna happen if we don't get the offer? My first go-to is, well, okay, if we start there, we got to stay there. If you really think you can get that, because if we have those price reductions, you're gonna net less in the long run versus if we just start here. This is the most compelling price for your house, not this one. So if we start here, and if that means $2,000 in staging, because when you talk about price drops with a client, you're never talking about $2,000. You're talking about 5, 10, 15. So if that gets that first weekend rush through the property and creates that competition and the urgency and the fear of loss, and I get 5 offers instead of 1 or none, then it's likely that it's going to get bid up more than the staging cost me. Right? Because we need eyeballs on the property, and our first showing is online. If we can't get past that first showing, they're not going to go in person. But if they love it and it's one of their top few on their list in their price range in their area, it's going to make their list to go see it, and we're going to have bodies through the property, right? So it's like they got to think like an investor. Buyers buy emotionally. Typical sellers sell emotionally too. I got to cut that off from them. Says, okay, now that you're selling, we got to concentrate on the buyer's needs, not yours. So although they loved and they were fine with that color palette for 15 years or however long they lived there, it's not what's going to sell the house today. And so if they would have wanted that color scheme and that presentation that you just saw, the before and after pictures, they would have done it already. But they lived there and they just didn't care enough to do it. So once they started thinking return on investment, you're going to spend this, some of it's sweat equity. It's your nights, your weekends painting. You got to pack up all this shit and get it out of here. You're going to store some of it anyway, right? So go put it in the storage. And then if you're selling it at a yard sale, sell it at a yard sale, like the bedroom furniture. They told me they were going to buy a new bedroom set. And I said, go get it. Let's use it. Because this one is, you know? And so, yeah, to me, it hasn't really been a difficult conversation about dollars when you compare it to the whole picture, right? Investors don't think of anything about putting in new countertops and painting or whatever, because they know that they're retailing the property. They're not just trying to sell it. They're trying to sell it for the most money. I mean, I want to run into an appraisal issue, right? Because that means I eked every dollar out I could for my client. And it varies. I mean, you can get good stagers for closer to even like $1,200, or you can spend $2,000, $2,500. It depends on how much you're doing, if you're just supplementing or if you're bringing in all new. So, we've got a couple of good stager contacts we can hook you up with.
And obviously, if they're still living in the house and they have nice furniture, then it's going to be a consult, which is, $150 to have a stager come in and do that consultation and kind of go through each room and declutter and move things around and change some things. And that's worth it every single time. Every single time.
And I pay for that too.
Mm.
You do too, right? I mean, I tell them that consult needs to be done. It's just part of our process and the service that we provide for them. And I just talk to them like, this is what we got to do first. First thing, we got to get our stager in here. We got to prepare for photos. So here's my calendar. I'm just talking about the process and the strategy of what we got to do first, all the way to listing it, and getting them thinking like a to-do list. Okay, well, let's get going. I mean, I like to set up the design consult appointment before I even leave, if possible. That kind of hooks them in.
I don't know anything about this property that you just showed. We haven't really talked about it at all, but kind of interesting. You know how most agents most agents that are going to list a property show up with all of the comps and kind of how much that house is worth, like high end, low end. I bet your high end is probably close to where you sold it. But when you walked in, you didn't know that, right? You didn't take those comps with you at that time, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. I never take a listing contract or comps with me to the first consult. That's more discovery process, relationship building. I'm making sure that we're a good match to work together. I got to know that they're going to work with me too. I mean, if they're going to be super, super difficult, I might not work so hard.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's, when I say that, it kind of lets them off the hook a little bit for feeling like they're going to be pressured, and you just have a conversation with them, and you're finding out how receptive they are to that inconvenience factor on getting their house ready. And when you're talking about strategy of getting it ready to list versus walking in with a price already predetermined, what you think they can sell it for, and you haven't even seen what they're selling. You saw those pictures. That was the same house, 2 different listings, the last listing and then mine. We presented a different product. So had they not been willing to paint and do the countertops and declutter and the staging and merchandising and get rid of, it might have been a different listing, right? But I knew I could push the limits based on their involvement in getting it ready. Does that make sense?
You know how much more confidence and more relaxed I would have been if I would have started my career without taking comps or a contract into a listing appointment. It takes the pressure off you as an agent too. Like, I'm not pressuring myself into this situation where I've got to have that conversation at the table and here's the contract signed, let's get the listing done. It's like you're actually going into that appointment looking for the best possible scenario and interest of the seller. And realistically, to do that, it is a 2-stage process. You've got to take a look at the house and do your research really after you see the house, in my opinion. And it's really interesting that you try to put a dollar amount on a property that you've never ever seen. It's pretty incredible because if you drive up and down so many neighborhoods, there's so many floor plans that are identical, but the houses are completely different on the inside and the outside. So how do you really know, if you've never been inside that house, or it's been years since you've been in that house, what that true value is going to be based on paper? It's kind of ridiculous when you think about it.
Yeah.
So
That's always been my approach. And that's why I figured as we're doing all these trainings and stuff, I want, like Dave, I see Dave. How you doing, Dave, on the call here? I was talking to Dave today after the training about him doing a training because he's got his own area specialty with LinkedIn and generating leads. And when I was like, that's perfect. We just want to share information with you guys so you can cherry pick what you want to do and what resonates with you. Not everybody will like my style of listing presentation, but you know what? It might give somebody like you, Eric, that used to do it a different way, and then maybe give them some new ideas, whether they make a blend of their listing presentation and mine and come up with their own, or they go, it doesn't matter. You craft your own style from learning from a multitude of people. You should never copy one person. You know, that's what
Yeah.
works for them. So, you know, in talking to Dave, I'll get him to do a training for us on LinkedIn and lead generation. And, you know, we got Jordy lined up in January. I want to utilize the agents that have something to offer to the other agents, because they're our peers, right? I mean, bringing in a title company that teaches us about branding is great. Teaches us about somebody that does funnels, teaching about lead generation is great. Bringing in Dave, that's a fellow agent that is actually has a program that he runs and has developed better, right? There's a different connection there. It's like, this is what I do in the field. And I love that. So anyway.
Jeff, can I jump here for a sec too, just on your staging comments?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So just talking to, you know, speaking to that, like, it really is an experience, right? If you think about Disney World or Disneyland, if you've ever been there, you walk into the park and you can tell from the minute you get to the parking lot, it's themed out and you feel like you're a part of that experience. Doing what you're talking about with, you know, your listings, that's essentially what you're doing. And I'd probably say, I don't know, 75% of agents don't think about it like that, right? They're just thinking about the sell and the commission, but they're not taking the seller through the journey. And that journey is what, you know, ultimately will lead to more referrals and everything else. Because if you can create an amazing experience for somebody, more than just the dollar amount, they're going to look at you and go, man, this person is an expert, because they're going above and beyond what I've ever heard of any other agent and any other experience they've had. So I wanted to give my 2 cents there.
I love your 2 cents, and it's worth more than that. I'm stealing it and I'm going to add it to my listing presentation.
Do it.
Creating an experience. I love that, because that's really, I haven't used the same words, but that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to elicit an emotional response from a buyer, and a good one, right? It's a psychological process for them. So the value that we're creating, it's just perceived. It's perceived. And if you add up the cost of the paint and the countertops and the labor to move out stuff out of the house and declutter that you're going to take out anyway, it's not that much, but the perceived value is tenfold, whatever, in the eyes of that buyer who, I love your words, you know, experiences the home and the whole process. The home buying process is an experience for the buyers too, right? That's what we got to buy into. And we got to get our sellers to buy into the process so that they can get the most money. Now, some of them don't care. Dave, you're an investor. You buy homes at a discount because that seller has other needs and other emotional things that they need to spend their emotion on or attention on. And it's not getting top dollar, it's getting out. And so you still set the expectations. You know, I can give you this much based on what it is. You could get this much, but based on what you've told me, you know, it sounds like you're going to go with this one, right? And so that's all we're doing. Not everybody participates, but the ones that do reap the rewards in the end.
Yep, exactly.
I think plus, Jeff, you need to, you know, once you take a look at that house and go back after you've seen it and you've kind of taken a look at the property, now you go back and do your research. That's really when you start reverse engineering it. Like what your maximum possible sale could be if the house was in perfect condition. And you start saying, would we need to invest, or what would the seller need to invest or change to make that happen? So, you know, every situation is going to be a little bit different. And I think, you know, having that confidence is really, really key. And of course, not every property is going to have that kind of room either, you know, depending on the seller situation. But I love that example. It's so good. I can't believe that was only 3 weeks long. You probably did so much for them. I remember this listing just recently that I had. I wish I would have taken some before pictures. But I knew when I was touring that house for the first time, I was not going to use any pictures that I was taking tonight, because I was going to have I was going to have the consultation come in. They're going to move a bunch of stuff. I know they're going to get rid of all that stuff and clutter it. So I wasn't even taking pictures. but it was one of the most dramatic changes I'd seen in years. And it was because mostly because the seller was a massive collector. Like he had figurines and of all these different, sci-fi things. It was just everywhere.
Collector
And
slash hoarder.
yeah, it was just so cluttered, but it was in a neat, organized, nerdy way, right? But it was really cool. It was neat if you're into that. But I knew that I wasn't going to use any of those photos. But I'm glad you took some before photos of that house. That's really good. So maybe.
Well, that particular one, like I told you, it was from the previous listing itself. So I was able to go back and look at those. And here's just one more last comment on this, and then we can move on. I think I have an unfair advantage because of doing flips and buying one product and creating a new one, and that's what I'm selling. So I would appraise my after repair value on what it's going to be, not what it is. And then I buy it based on, always work deals backwards. So when I'm having that conversation with the sellers of think like an investor, even if you haven't done those flips, you can still use the same terminology. You got to think like an investor. So one of the things I had my realtor do when he would bring me MLS properties is I wanted a page of comps, the brief report that's only this big. I want a whole page of them. I don't want 3 or 4 comps. I want a whole page of comparable properties in the same area, because now I've got a low and a high. What's the highest price a similar property like the one I'm looking at has sold for? And where does mine fit in this spectrum if I sort this low to high? It's a very simple process. I want to beat that price. I want to sell mine more. When somebody sorts a list, I want it to be the most expensive one, right? So what do I got to do to make my product that I'm going to put an offer on that? And then I can work it backwards on what I got to do to the property, to that product. What's my profit margin? Well, here's what I can offer. It's like, it can't be really anything else unless I have a sliding margin on my profit, right? So by working it backwards on what it's going to be, that's the way a seller needs to look at it. It's like, if we sell your house right now as is, there's plenty of agents that are going to walk in here with comps and they're going to give you a price and yep, let's get it on the market. They need a listing. I'm going to back off for 3-4 weeks or whatever, if I have to, or longer, and help you flip your house. Flip your own house, be the investor. Let's make this the best product on the market. I like to set price points for the neighborhood. Sellers love to hear shit like that. And that you have a plan to create the product to actually pull it off. Not like, I post your home on more websites than anybody else, I'm going to get whatever. I don't even know what they say these days, but it's.
I love that you say, I want to have an appraisal problem, because that means you're doing the job right and you're sucking every dollar out of that property possible. And, one thing I've heard you say many times before, to sellers is, my job is to sell your house twice. Say we're looking to sell, and you're going to say it better than I do, Jeff, because it's your line that I stole. Like, right? We learned from each other. Yeah. But you're really you want to sell that house for the most amount of money to that next buyer and create that excitement and really kind of a fear of loss. If I don't put in the best offer possible, someone else is going to gobble this house up. You're selling it to the buyer first. And then second, you're selling it to that appraiser. What a great job that you've done with getting it on the market correctly, having it staged properly, having multiple offers and having that listed right on the MLS when it goes under contract with multiple offers. Appraisers see that. So you're really selling it to that appraiser at the same time. So selling it twice.
Let me give you a good example of that, Eric. Because that is exactly what I do. And I explain that to the sellers. Like, my job, that's why you're paying me full commission, because I'm selling your house twice. But we got to market it and sell it to the buyer. And then we got the appraiser to agree. Sydney did a beautiful job on that, on just selling her own home. I think it just closed, or it's closing this week. There was no justifiable comps for her property to think that it would sell for more than 780, like 775, 780. She prepped her house for market and we listed it at 800. We went under contract at 805 and it appraised at 790. So that's where the job continues, right? We contested that appraisal and got him to come up to 8, which was our original list price, which was higher than what the comps would have appraised for before we lifted. If I would have showed up to her house with a list of comps, we would have listed at 775. Maybe it would have got a bit up, maybe it wouldn't, right? But anyway, so she regained that $10,000 after the appraisal had been done.
Well, I hope you charged her full price too.
Yeah, she didn't pay nothing. That's all right. She paid it away. She's my baby.
I didn't know the answer, but I did know the answer. So
Yeah,
that was-
you're right.
I was kidding. Well, this is a great discussion. I love these discussions. I had a whole piece planned tonight for training, and it's definitely an hour long, so I'm not going to get into it.
Sorry.
No. It's perfect. I love this. I mean, I think these are some of the best trainings when we get off on tangents of how real life what we actually do. But I will give you a preview of what I put together, and I'm going to post it in the merchant group. But one of the things that we've had, I've noticed a lot is kind of doing the same things over and over when I'm working with the mentees. And there's just some simple things that we can do to avoid confusion. And I was confused too the first time I was going through certain different things and how EXP wants it, how the broker wants it. So I made a cheat sheet on Skyeslope for kind of going through the process of what goes first, what goes last. So let's see. Can I share my screen, Jeff?
Yeah, it should be open. While you pull that up, Jesse had a question. So Jesse, to answer your question, that house was listed a little over 2 years ago for $535. And it didn't sell. Those are the before pictures I was using from the other realtors' photos, and we sold it for $675. So obviously we got some credit from the market conditions, a little over 2 years of market conditions. But the point is, the other one didn't even sell. You know, he had to pull it from the market because they didn't even go under contract. And so I had multiple offers the first weekend. So answer that question. Okay, go ahead.
So Jeff, everything we've been talking about tonight is so much more interesting and exciting than this. But
all these guys love checklists. What are you talking about?
I know, but this is important too, right? So
yes, absolutely.
Can you see my checklist?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to be really brief on this because I was going to go through kind of a whole class of from A to Z on how to do everything, but that's really boring, and we'll do that a different night anyway when somebody needs it or when we need a spot. But one thing with Skyeslope is everything is not in the perfect order of how you should upload and put everything in. So what I did is I went through the entire Skyeslope list of a closed transaction, and the whole goal is to have all of these green, right? Because when you upload a new file, it's going to be, well, when you start a file, you've got red ones, and then you upload them, they turn yellow because they need to be reviewed by the broker, and then they turn green when you're done. And the goal is to get them all green as fast as possible, right, before we're closing. But it's a little bit confusing on which ones to do. So just briefly, I put number 1 as items that you can do immediately when you write an offer. So this is when you're writing an offer and working with a buyer. And most of the time when I'm working with newer agents, it's usually buyer's transactions we're doing first. So this is really important. So we've got obviously number 8 is your REPC, and this checklist is a little bit different now than the one that I screenshotted. And the reason I grabbed this one is because it had the most amount of documents possible. I had like FHA, addendum. I just had everything, right? So that's why I use this one. But number 1 means you can do them right away. Like you can do the buyer broker agreement, the due diligence, the wire fraud, your purchase contract, if there's an FHA addendum, any additional addendums you might have. And then also if you're most of the time we're depositing earnest money with a title company. So we can do that addendum right at the beginning. And then also if there's a lead-based paint disclosure as well. So everything that's number 1, you can do immediately right when you write the offer. And as a side note, if I'm writing an offer, and I don't have a buyer's agreement, I'm always going to be doing that at that point, obviously. And that's usually when I do my buyer's agreement, but everyone's different on that. So instead of going through and going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 28 or whatever it is, I just did number 1 on the ones you can do first. And then everything that's number 2, these are items you want to get as soon as possible next that you can. Like your earnest money check is due 4 days, to your title company, 4 days from going under contract, including the day you go under contract. So today being the 1st, it'd be 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. So it's due on the 4th. So you want to get that in. MLS under contract printout, property disclosures, you don't have to wait for those. You can get those as soon as you can. And see what else we got.
Hey, Eric, quick question for you.
Yeah, for sure, Dave.
Just on that title or the earnest money check, that's how I've always done it. Is that standard with EXP? Just
With
doing
the
it
title company?
Yeah, putting it at title.
Yes. Yeah, it is
Okay,
standard with
cool.
EXP. We do
Okay.
have a brokerage account for those rare times when an agent says he absolutely doesn't want it at a title company, and we just have a special, deposit ticket for that. But yep, we do it with a title company.
But for
Okay,
admin
cool.
reasons, Dave, they want you to do that every time unless it creates a problem with the transaction.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've only had one transaction where I've had it ever be an issue, and I was like, "Why is that an issue? You haven't heard of that before?" But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, just was
Well,
curious. Okay,
It's more common today.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure. So
That's all.
that's everything for number 2. Number
Awesome.
3, can you hear me okay, Jeff?
Yeah, I can hear you, but the reason you are asking me that is because I kept starting to talk the same time you were, so I'll just shut up.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I like the way you broke that down because you're in charge of the number 1s, get them done. You're waiting on
Yep.
the listing agent to do something so you can get the number 2s. So, take a little pressure off. So no, just saying, this is awesome.
Yep. Yeah, and as soon as you get all number 2s done, you can do number 3, which is your transaction doc receipt. And you're going to always do this on any buyer, seller. It doesn't matter if it's a listing or a buyer, you're always going to have that transaction doc receipt from that's in the MLS. So obviously you do that after you have these documents done because you're stating your buyer or seller is signing off that they received copies of all these items. So that would be that number 3. And then as soon as I have that back, I'm going to go submit it with EXP. I'm going to upload the agent completion file right here. That triggers EXP that your file is completely ready for review and you're moving towards closing. I think I told Kim the other day you could upload a picture of your cat right here. It wouldn't matter because all it does is there's no signatures on this form. It just triggers, hey, when an agent uploads something on number 1, that means they're good to go and they need it reviewed. So yeah, that's the goal, is to get that up as soon as possible and get the paperwork done, over the whatever time frame that you're in. And then finally, you have 5 and 6. So the copy of the CDA, that's your commission disbursement. This has to come after number 4 because you have that completion of file and you get that triggered through EXP. The goal here is to get a split commission disbursement, which means there's a check that goes to EXP and a check that goes to you, the agent. So title can disperse directly to your checking account. So if you're waiting till the last day to get this, you're going to get a CDA and it's only going to have on that commission disbursement is 1 check going to EXP because they haven't finished dividing it up. It's not approved and all done yet. So always get that as soon as you can. And if you don't have the one that's split, I asked my title company, you know, if it's going to close and there's commissions there, I just tell them, hey, will you just hold that commission for a couple days? I just need to finish up the paperwork, get it reviewed. So don't send that off DXP. I'll get the split updated CDA there. And then 6, this is done after closing. So once you can't do 21 or 22 until you're done closing. So the commission check that you upload here is actually the commission check that's to EXP, not to you. It's the one that goes to EXP. And then the final disclosure, that's signed by the buyer and the seller. So you can't upload that until afterwards too. So the CDA that is sent to you and title has instructions to your escrow officer what to do with 6 and 7, and that's to email you a copy. So after closing, you're going to get a copy of these two based on the instructions, and then you can upload them. And once you're uploaded, then the file is completed. So I'm going to throw this on Workplace for us too, so you can grab a copy if you like. Do you? I know, Jeff. Do you see anything that I could have changed or missed?
No, but that doesn't mean there isn't anything. Ashley does this for me, so I'm not the one to really notice anything. We did the first few together, and part of her job description is my transaction coordination. So
Yeah.
might be a good thing. I'll have Ashley go over it and get some input from her. But it looks great. Yeah, it's logical. It makes sense, because when you see this big long list and you look at all the stuff you're missing, it's like, I got to get my done, right? So it gives you a little bit of expectation that it's not even required.
I had nothing done. Eric had to help me do a bunch. But the good news is I did the second one all by myself.
Nice job.
Yay, Kim.
Yeah, well, like on this checklist, 1 and 2 are pretty easy, because you just know you have to get them all done. But the order of 3, 4, 5, and 6 was a little confusing when I first started working with EXP, because I was like, so where's the commission check? How do I upload that? Or I don't have a CDA, and do I upload the agent completion file after the whole thing is closed? I don't know. So went and did some research and figured it out. And I think this is pretty straightforward. And kind of.
I do have one question on that, Eric. So the agent completion of file is done at step 4. Scroll back down to the last ones. Do you have to do anything else once you do 5 and 6? Do you have to draw their attention to it again, or is that automatic when you do your 5 and 6 down there?
When you upload 4, it triggers 5 through EXP. They start working on the CDA once you upload 4.
Okay, so
step
upload number 6 is then after. Right. Is there anything else you have to do?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I do send an email to just agent processing, just let them know that it's done. And I've actually gone into EXP World too, just into processing, and just said, hey, I just want to let you know this file's done, because it takes like 1 minute, and they'll sign off on it. But you don't technically have to do that.
I just know that there's been a delay on some transactions where they haven't closed it out yet. So basically that's just because they're backed up and haven't got to it yet, not because we're missing a step.
Right. Okay. Here's what happens is, if you get the CDA on number 5, so you've uploaded agent completion file, you got your CDA, you went to closing, guess what? Money shows up in your account from your title company, and you close and you give the buyer keys. You're just like, all right, well, I'm on to the next one, right? Well, you haven't uploaded 21 and 22 yet, because that's an email that comes a day or, like the next day from title. So you just want to wrap that up and finish it. So if you don't do that, it'll sit in EXP for, it might take a few weeks to a month before they catch up, because this commission check to EXP is actually mailed. They mail it to them, and EXP picks them up in location and then closes out all the files. But if you upload it, a copy of that commission check to EXP, then they can close out the file. They don't actually need the physical check to close it out. So it does speed things up if you do those 2 step 6s. And I know that Judy Freeman was the one reviewing our files, and just recently we have someone else that's helping her out, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Does anybody know that by
I
chance?
can't remember his name either, but Ashley says he's been doing great.
Yeah. But that's who I would email too. Like if I upload 6, when I do step 6, is just shoot him an email. And I wish I had his email, but I don't have it right now.
It's
But,
probably in the Utah group,
yeah.
workplace group, the Utah State group, and Jesse thinks his name is Barry.
It is Barry. That's correct. Yeah, it is Barry. So you could just email Barry a quick message and just say, hey, I just want to let you know on this property, I just uploaded a commission check and final CD if you want to close it out. Thanks for being a rock star. That's it. And then you're good. So any questions on that?
If there's no questions on that, well, speak up if there is, but if not, Brenton had put a question in the chat that I'll answer, but
Okay, I didn't see.
stay on this. So we're-
Nice, Derek. You nailed it, buddy. Checklists are good.
I know, not as exciting, but
Hey, man, it's exciting because that's how you close the deal and get paid. So
yeah,
it's a good thing.
it can be
anything that
overwhelming.
eliminates frustration.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be overwhelming when you see this massive checklist with all these reds and you're like, oh my gosh, here we go. What do I do first and last?
Yeah, and you know what, guys, if this is not your thing, if this even still stresses you out, just budget in out of your commission to pay a transaction coordinator. Have them do it. Take it completely off your plate.
Perfect. Well, that's all I got, Jeff.
Okay, well, we're kind of backtracking a little bit, which is okay, but Brenton, as we were moving off of the listing presentations, when we were talking about selling the house twice, his question was, how do you come up with the list price when the comps say otherwise? The appraisal is based on the comps that are already out there, right? So that's actually part of my listing presentation. And that's why I want to create a formal training or presentation for you guys so I can go a little bit deeper into that, because it is kind of a presentation to the seller. You're going to have that conversation with them about the comps. One thing they need to realize is it's not science. It's an opinion of value, okay? So there's the appraiser's opinion of value. There's the buyer's opinion of value. Sometimes they don't match up. So when you're talking to your client, especially if the comps are lower, obviously we're taking into consideration market conditions, right? If the market shifts and we got a 6-month supply of inventory, it's going to be a different presentation. Where we're at right now is just where we're at. So we do our listing presentation based on the current market, and we'll change and we'll adapt. So what you're going to do is you're going to show them what an appraiser is going to see, because an appraiser looks in the past, right? 6 months old in this market, that's not a really good indicator of value today, right? So you've got to do 3 sets of comps. You've got to show them where the solds are, and I'm talking about your seller. You got to show them where the under contracts are that are going to become solds by the time, so they're going to become a comp, right? We don't know exactly what price they're under contract for, but they're going to be sold. You can almost kind of gauge when, and it might be a comp for you. But then you've got the actives, okay? So comps means 2 different things. It means comparable for the past and competition. The competition is what they're listing against. So when I have a conversation about my opinion of value with somebody, if we don't go on the market for a couple of weeks, I got to do all that over again, because new homes hit the market every day. So remember I told you I would have my agent do me a big list of comps, and I could see the low to high. I can go into the condition of those properties and I can see why this one sold for this and why this one sold for this. You know, and I'm pointing to the bottom of the list because I would sort them low to high down here, kind of backwards. But now we're having that conversation with them on a range. Okay, an appraiser is going to come up with a number. I think that's kind of BS, you know, but because there's a low and a high, and we want them to hit the high. And so when you're talking about listing their property at one of those numbers, you bring in their timing, their motivation. Do you have to sell? Can we stay on the market? If we're going to go on the high, you got to be willing, like I told you, I tell them, you got to be willing to not drop the price. That means if we stay on the market a month, don't be coming to me and dropping the price. Lynn had a client drop the price 15,000, I think it was, in like 10 days. You know, I don't want that. Okay. So that's part of your conversation. And it's also imparting your knowledge to them. Is like, this makes sense. You actually have a strategy. It's not just listing their home. You've got a process from that design consultation to coming up with that accurate opinion of value. So it's like, obviously the lower you list the home, the more compelling it's going to be, right? More buyers are going to see it. It seems like a bargain, maybe. If you're at the low end of that range, some agents might even think, man, you listed it low just to get multiple offers, but it has to do with what you need to accomplish for your seller, because all your conversation is meeting their needs. It's not about EXP stats or your sales and your logo or any of that. So your whole listing consultation is about them. That in and of itself is different, because most listing presentations are about the realtor and what I do. And you got to dive deep into what their needs are. So I hope I'm answering your question. I'll try and articulate it better and put together. That's why I want to put together some slides so I can cover it in a manner that it kind of makes sense and maybe give you something to take away. But by you explaining to them, the appraiser's got to use the solds, but we're more concerned about what's under contract and the competition of our actives. We're either going to help those actives sell their house before us because we're going to be sorted and rated against them, or they're going to help us sell. I want our product to be nicer than theirs if possible. And if it's not nicer, let's say you've got one at $500,000 that's nicer than what you're going to put on the market. It's pretty easy to have a conversation with your client. Do you really think we can get $500,000 if this one's been on the market 2-3 weeks? And for A, B, and C reasons, yours isn't as nice, but you want to list at 520? Doesn't make any sense, right? So it's pretty easy to guide them around to a plan when you give them all the options and give them the data, so they know exactly why you came up with that money or that figure. Does that kind of answer your question?
It does. Yeah, I've been on a few listing appointments, and that's why I was asking specific questions like that. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And that conversation sometimes is even done over the phone. I don't have to go back to their house. If I've done that consultation and that discovery meeting and we walk through the house and we've seen everything and we've had all this conversation like we're talking about, I can call them in a couple of days and say, hey, I got some numbers for you. And I just kind of go.
Yeah, that's what I've done. That's what I've done, all based on what you preaching about previously, you know. So I like that idea, because what I'm trying to do is I go to them, talk to them, meet with them, you know, figure out why they want to sell it, what they like about the property, and then look and see what we can make, you know, what they're looking at, but what we can make it to be better. So yeah.
Yeah, the hardest part is getting the listing appointment. The hardest part is getting the listing appointment, right?
Yeah.
You know, and so once you're on it, and these types of things, in my opinion,
Yeah.
when another agent says, I've pulled some comps and this is what the data is showing your property's worth, and then you bring in all this other stuff about strategy and pricing based on competition and actives and prepping the house for market and actually doing something. Because you know, don't get me wrong, all agents aren't the same. There's some really, really good ones out there. But the masses, I know what they're taught. And so they're going to say things a certain way. And the masses want to get the listing. They're showing up at that first appointment with a contract. That's their goal.
Mhm.
My goal on the first conversation is just, what's that?
I said that's what they're taught, you know, so that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Everyone's in this reality of 1980s, 1990s, and it doesn't work anymore. So I agree.
Well, here's the irony of that. It's been done for decades that way. That's why they teach you it works. Why it's been done that way for decades.
Mhm.
Anyway, cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, that was good, Eric. not exactly what you had planned. Sorry to hijack your.
That's good. It was more interesting and probably more helpful. So love it. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks everybody for participating too. Appreciate it.
Yep,
Thanks, you
thanks.
guys.
Reach out if you need anything.
All right. See you guys. Have a great night.
You guys.
Bye.